What's happening, everyone? Today we are gonna switch gears. We've been talking a lot of NFL lately, of course, because the NFL's king and the NFL is rolling right now, and it's a lot of fun. Week 2 is approaching. Last night was a hell of a game. I mean, I guess it wasn't that close of a game, but it's football, so we had a good time watching it. The Packers did what I thought they would do, took care of business of the Washington Commanders, and boy, oh boy, do the Packers look like Super Bowl contenders. But we will get to them, I'm sure, when I do my post week 2 power rankings, and we will be talking them up because they look elite. But we're going to switch gears today and talk a little bit about the NBA and the state of the NBA and what is going on with Kawhi, the Clippers, Aspiration. So, as many of you all know, Pablo Torre is an independent journalist who has broken the story that Aspiration was a company created that pretty much was taking payments and investments from Steve Ballmer, whose number of investments seemed to be adding up to the payments that an LLC called KL2 was receiving, which obviously Kawhi Leonard, he wears number 2, and it was $7 million a year that Kawhi was supposed to be receiving from Aspiration. It was a go green type of company about planting plants, and I didn't really look into all those details, but ultimately the big story here is that Kawhi was receiving payments for what they are saying is a no-show job. Pablo Torre reported this. He has his own podcast, and pretty much that Kawhi was just receiving payments for having to do absolutely nothing. Now, I want to kind of just, think out loud here and talk about my thoughts on this because there's still a lot of details that are yet to be uncovered. I mean, Pablo Torre has been doing his independent journalism and finding out details here and there about it. And most recently, there was, I don't know how much of a coincidence this is, and this is more so just something that he figured out that I guess you can't really prove, but Kawhi was only playing like 20% of games up to a certain point on the calendar, when then suddenly Aspiration received another investment from the only other owner of the Clippers, because Ballmer owns 99% of the Clippers. That 1% is owned by another guy. That guy made a deposit of an investment into Aspiration, and about a week later, Kawhi Leonard received his payment. And then suddenly Kawhi Leonard was playing like 80% of the remaining games for the Clippers. Again, that's cool and all that Pablo Torre figured that out. And yeah, if you actually follow the paper trail, it makes a lot of sense. But ultimately, can it be proven? The thing to keep in mind here is with the NBA, it is not a court of law. So you don't have necessarily to prove it. You pretty much just need to convince the NBA that this is what was going on. Because, like I said, they're not a court of law. And I think they're at a discretion to essentially suspend or lay down the punishment for owners for based on things that they think were going on. So that's where we stand now. Nothing's been released by the NBA. Adam Silver hasn't really gone at it yet. It's being investigated by the NBA. But the thing I want to touch on is, who is the victim here? So Pablo Torre comes out and drops this bombshell of a story, which good for him. He's getting the attention. And I don't have anything against Pablo Torre. And I guess my problem, quote unquote, problem with this is that, like, if the Lakers hired Pablo Torre and were like, hey, Ballmer is screwing us up and, we wanted to get Kawhi, but we couldn't. So can you look into the Clippers? Or if the Raptors at the time, who lost Kawhi Leonard that offseason, were like, hey, we had the same contract for him and we think some sneaky stuff is going on behind closed doors. Can you please look into this for us, and hired Pablo Torre? Then I get it. Like, in that case, then I'm all on Team Pablo Torre for doing this investigative journalism. But part of me just feels like he's being nosy and sticking his nose somewhere where, like, again, I know this is wrong because if the Clippers are doing wrong and being sneaky and circumventing the cap, like, then they shouldn't be allowed to do that. But I also feel like then the responsibility is on the NBA, which apparently during that same offseason when Kawhi went to the Clippers, teams did kind of ask the NBA, and the NBA, I think, looked into it. But that was it. And the league found nothing fishy and nothing weird. So it almost just comes off to me like, and I don't think this is the case, but almost like Pablo Torre had a personal beef with the Clippers and started snooping around and trying to figure out anything that would make the Clippers look bad, found this, and now is attacking the Clippers. And again, I don't think that's what's going on. But I just can't help but think, like, you could do this with every NBA team. Like I said, I mean, I don't think I'm naive to say that I think there is some kind of chicanery like this that goes on with every NBA team. I mean, the Lakers literally drafted LeBron James's son and gave him a fully guaranteed contract as a second round pick. And I'm not complaining about it. It's within the rules. But so now if LeBron's son gives his dad, LeBron, a car for LeBron's birthday, now are we going to look into that and be like, well, what if this was a way for the Lakers to circumvent the cap because they couldn't give LeBron any more money because he's a max player. So maybe they guaranteed that they would give his son the money by giving him the fully guaranteed deal. Like, that could be a red flag. Mark Cuban has literally said that he would give credit cards to players and say, hey, go get a nice dinner. That's circumventing the cap, technically speaking. So I'm not for the teams doing wrong. I guess I'm just saying they all do it. And again, maybe it's on the Clippers for, being the ones that got caught if this does end up happening like this. But I don't understand why Pablo Torre was on this, and it irritates me. This is just me thinking out loud. Why do you care? And honestly, even as an NBA fan, if tomorrow the news dropped that it's like the Clippers have been circumventing the cap, and so have the Knicks, and so have the Celtics, am I still watching? Yeah. Do we really care as fans? Probably not, because we know it happens. I mean, not that it's happening in Boston, but Jason Tatum also has an endorsement deal with a sponsor of the team. How do we think he got in touch with that sponsor? Probably because he signed a contract with the team and the owners of the team put them in touch, or whoever. I'm just saying, by being a Celtic, he was able to get this perk. That's why since the NBA has existed, everyone's always said big market teams have an advantage. That's why when Kevin Durant signed with Golden State, it was known that he was like, I wanted to be around Silicon Valley. Oh, how do we think he made some connections at Silicon Valley? Do we not think Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, was like, hey, KD, sign with us. Here, I'll introduce you to some people. This is so-and-so at Facebook, and this is so-and-so at Google. That stuff is going to continue to happen. And then when people, and look, I agree. I mean, everything that's out there to me makes it seem like, why would Kawhi have his LLC as KL2? If you would have had your LLC as Surfer Dude, no one would have looked into it and thought that's Kawhi Leonard. It would have just been like something random. So that makes no sense, first of all, which I don't think Kawhi or the Clippers would be that stupid. But even if they were that stupid, and now we're complaining, and people are like, why would Kawhi be so lazy and not just do one tweet? If he would have just done one tweet saying, I want everyone to look into Aspiration, I love this company, then it's okay? So we're pretty much saying, Kawhi, you should have lied to us. I don't like that either. To us, so many people are just saying, if this job would have been, the problem with it's that it was a no-show job and that he didn't have to do anything. And that's what the problem is. Well, no, technically the problem is, if you're saying that the Clippers circumvented the cap, that is the problem. So technically, even if he did make commercials for Aspiration, wouldn't that still be the problem? So I don't like that argument either. So if he did one, commercial for Aspiration, but got paid $7 million a year, I guess technically then it's okay, because we would just be like, oh, well, it's an overpay by Aspiration, but that's fine. Well, technically the issue is, is the problem that we have with teams circumventing the cap, or is the problem that we have with Kawhi being a no-show? And it's more and more like it seems like the problem is with him being a no-show. So you're basically saying, oh, we don't care about circumventing the cap, just show up for a commercial. All right, well, then that's what teams are going to do. No, which one? That's just stupid. Now you're just jealous that he got a no-show contract, and that Aspiration was basically we don't need to do a pointless ad that with Kawhi's personality, no one's going to believe. Are you going to believe that? If Kawhi's out there planting a tree and he's like, come plant trees with Aspiration, ain't nobody buying that. So maybe Aspiration was it's a pointless ad. I don't know. There's so many details to come out, but there's a part of me that doesn't understand why Pablo Torre looked into this. And again, if the league looked into it, if the Philadelphia 76ers hired someone to look into it, I would have no issue. But it just seems like again, like, who's the victim? If all the teams have their own way of doing it, then shouldn't the victim be the one, like the teams that feel played, be the ones to be like, hey, look into this? Again, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think the majority of team owners are pissed that this happened. I don't think they're happy that the Clippers are getting caught. I think they're going to be pissed off that if the Clippers did do wrongdoing, they're going to be pissed off that the Clippers didn't hide it well enough, essentially, because I think they all do it, and I think it's no secret. And like I said, I mean, I'll ask you as a fan, you're watching this and you're an NBA fan, as a fan, if tomorrow details came out like, hey, teams have been circumventing the cap, we figured out that they've all been using their sponsors to pay their players more money, are you now not watching the NBA? Are you? Just ask yourself, comment, and let me know. Are you not watching the NBA anymore? Or are you like, well, they're already overpaid and now they're getting overpaid more, so nothing's changed. So again, and then on top of that, obviously, Adam Silver did have a press conference, and this is the last thing I'll touch on with the league, that I just don't think it's a great message to send to fans. And there's something I worry about now with the new TV deal, and obviously games are going to be on different channels and all that, but the league just signed a huge deal. They got a lot of money now, and they don't have to worry about this contract expiring for another 10 plus years. I think it might be 10 years. And this is the quote that Adam Silver had.
Can consume. There's a huge amount of content that people can essentially consume for free. I mean, this is very much a highlights-based sport.
All right, so that comment right there where he says this is a highlight-based sport, not the best thing to say. And I guarantee if Adam Silver could take that back or say it a different way, he would. But I do think that this is what the league has been kind of believing lately, and you see it with the All-Star game, and they're focusing more on influencers and getting the game out and House of Highlights and all that stuff, which is great. Don't get me wrong, the highlights are awesome. But if this is the message and this is how you believe, then it just does kind of send a message of the integrity of the game and how the gameplay goes, or the flow of the game, the reviews. We don't really care too much about that. What we care about is the slam dunks, because that's going to be the highlight, which, sure, as business, maybe that is the truth, and that is the truth, and that's the future. But you can't tell your fans that, because that's like a movie director essentially saying, man, the trailer is awesome, so don't even bother watching the movie. If you just watch the trailer, you'll see all the good stuff anyway. And if a movie director said that, obviously he's hurting the box office, because then people are going to be like, wait, so why should I go spend my money and watch this? And that's kind of what some people could take from that and think to themselves, hold on, so he's basically saying us, like, we're just going to be able to catch the highlights, so why should I pay for the streaming service just to catch one NBA game a week? I'll just watch the highlights. And even though it might be a reality, I think any league should try to do as much as they can to keep people watching their full product, obviously, not just, the highlights. And in a way, I guess I respect them for being honest. But again, I just think that that's a tough thing to say for fans to hear, who were, considering about paying some extra money to watch one extra game a week on one of the streaming services. So that part, obviously, not a great look for the league. And then the last thing this is the actual last thing. Now, this season, the league will establish that when a player heaves a half-court heave, now I don't know the exact rules, like what is a half-court, what does a, end of the half heave mean? Does it have to be behind half court? Or is it within, 3 seconds before the expiration of the clock? Like, is it based on distance? I'm not really sure yet. I'm sure I'll figure that out soon as we, the season approaches. But essentially, back in the day, if you were Jason Tatum and you were 10 for 10 shooting, and it was the end of the third quarter and the Celtics were winning by 30, you were probably not shooting a half-court shot at the end of the third quarter, because if you missed it, which chances are high you would miss a 3-quarter shot or a full court shot, now you would be 10 for 11 shooting. So a lot of the players would wait and let the clock expire and then just heave it up, which I have always hated because you're supposed to be team first. Well, now the league has essentially bent over backwards for the players and said to them, it's okay. If you miss the shot, it'll count as a team field goal. So it's not going to hurt your personal field goal percentage. And Richard Jefferson, which I respect, had a great tweet about this, which I'm going to find right now. And I think, it kind of goes with my thoughts. So Shams tweeted this. The NBA will implement a new change for the 25-26 season. Unsuccessful end of period heaves will now be recorded as a missed field goal attempt for the team, not the player. Those long heaves will no longer impact an individual's player's percentages. And then this is what Richard Jefferson had to say. This is cowardly. We don't want it to count towards your percentage unless you make it. You want the positive without the potential for negative. Professional sports in 2025. And he's right. You can't have the best of both worlds. But the league is saying, yes, you can. And it's sad. Like, if anything, if I was a coach, I would be pissed at a player that didn't shoot the half-court heave. Because I would be like, I don't care about your field goal percentage. Dude, you could get 3 points for your team. You better do it. There's a 0.1% chance of getting 3 points for us, you better try, and you better try to do that. And so, again, the players don't want it to count to their field goal percentage, but if they make it, they do. And so, again, it just sucks. It's stats-based. And really, like I said, I like winners. So the only stat that should matter is winning and losing. So we should be wins-based, but we're creating a culture of stat-based, that matters more maybe than the team. And I don't like that. So those are my thoughts. Again, please remember, subscribe, like, share, and thanks for watching. Tomorrow, Saturdays, a lot of college football, which is super exciting. But on here, we'll come in and do our week 2 predictions. Sunday's just around the corner. Cannot wait to watch more football. Basketball is not that far away either. We're pretty much approaching a month, a little bit over a month from the start of the season. So best time of year. As a sports fan, you got to love it. And baseball is about to start their playoffs. So great time of year. The weather's great. So I will talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.